He had these shin guards on to protect him so that you couldn't, with a stick or a sword or a rock or anything, you couldn't take his legs out from under him very easily. All of his armor together likely weighed over 300 pounds. How big would you have to be to carry that much weight into battle and to be able to fight effectively carrying 300 pounds? I don't like it. Dake, many of you have the Dake Study Bible. Dake estimates the total weight of his armor at 318 pounds. Man, many of us don't weigh 300 pounds. I mean, that's big. So he comes out, and he's standing there, and he walks every day. Twice a day comes down into this valley and looks at the army. An army comprised of trained soldiers. Most of them have seen battle before. Another little, just a historical fact. Because it gets hot over there, there are seasons when it is so hot, even the people who are used to being there don't want to be outside working, doing things during the heat of the day if they don't have to be. That's why the woman at the well that Jesus talked to in John chapter 4, it's why it was so unusual for her to be there and why she was there alone. She was there at the hottest part of the day because no one else would let her be with them. She didn't go in the cooler part of the day when other people would go and get water from that well. In the hottest part of the day, they didn't go out, they didn't do things. Even soldiers wouldn't go fight in the hottest part of the day, in the hot season. They had seasons when they would go and say, you know what, this is the time of year when we make war. If you wanted to fight with one of your neighbors, you pick decent weather. Nobody wants to die in that heat. If you're going to get all bloodied up, you might as well do it when the weather's nice and cool. You know? This was a common thing every year. The armies would group together. This was their focus. It was kind of like football season, you know. Nobody wants to play football in July. You wait until September and October. They would get suited up. They would get prepared. They would go back into training and be ready so that when it was time, when they could expect, if another army was going to attack them, it would come during this time of the year. If they were going to attack any other army, they would do it at this time of the year. No surprise. So here's Israel, a trained army, because they've done this every year. Sitting on the hillside, watching Goliath come down into the valley and challenge them. They say, hey, I'll tell you what, make a deal with you. You don't all have to fight, if one of you will. Will one of you come down into this valley and fight with me? And let's make a deal. Here, he thought he was Monty Hall. Let's make a deal. If you win, we'll be your servants. But if I win, you have to serve us. He mocked them. He mocked their God. And no one in Israel, in their army, no one moved toward the fight. It says what they actually did was moved back. They would run and hide for fear that he might actually leave the valley and come towards where they were at. He looked big. He sounded big. And they decided, without raising a weapon, they decided that the battle is hopeless. If we face him, we cannot win. And so they never engaged in the battle. Never engaged in the battle. So along comes David. By all accounts, he was probably somewhere around 15 to 17 years old. He was an adolescent, a young man. David comes up, his father sends him. And as you read the story, in verse 12, it talks about David and his brothers. David was the youngest of 8, the son of Jesse from Bethlehem. His 3 oldest brothers were in the army. Funny thing is, it says they had followed Saul in the battle. No, they hadn't. They had followed Saul to a place where they could look at where the battle should be taking place, and then they stayed there. Their families thought, everybody else in the country thought, they're out there, they're going to be fighting. That's what we do. They followed Saul in the battle. David was home taking care of the sheep. The job nobody else wanted. Hanging out there with those dirty, stinky, smelly sheep, David got stuck with that job. But his father said, let's get some supplies to your brothers. Let's make a little present to them. So I want you to take this parched grain, and I want you to take 10 loaves, and I want you to take cheese. I heard somebody say once, David packed up and took toasted cheese sandwiches to his brothers in the army. What? You get in a warm climate like that, you put cheese and bread in a bag together, as hot as that is, by the time you get there, you got cheese sandwiches. Okay. Go see how your brothers are doing, check on them, get an update, let us know how the battle is going. So David got up. He left his sheep with another keeper, somebody who could watch out for them, and headed towards where the battle was. When he got there, he gave the food and the supplies to someone who would make sure that his brothers got them. And then he heard something was going on, so he went to see what was happening, went to check in and greet his brothers. And as they talked, what time? Here's this young boy, never been in the army, didn't have a uniform, didn't have all the swords and weapons that a normal soldier would have. But he's standing there talking to his brothers, and as they talk, Goliath, the champion, the Philistine of Gath, came forward from the Philistines' ranks and spoke the same words as before. One thing was different today. One thing was different. The only thing that changed today from any previous day was David heard him. Nothing else changed. David heard him. Woo. That's good. All the men of Israel, when they saw the man, Goliath, fled from him terrified. Fortunately for them, David wasn't considered a man yet, so he wasn't obligated to act like them. He wasn't a trained soldier, so he didn't know he was supposed to be scared. They fled. David is asking these questions. What's going on here? What are you guys doing? Here is this Philistine who doesn't know our God, doesn't serve our God, he defies our God, and you're taking this from him? Because he questioned the status quo. Because he questioned